Hi, boys and girls. Today's lesson 17 starts out with a whole group read of the burning of Washington, D.C. So we're going to start by going over some vocabulary words. We have the word charge, which means to rush into. Okay, so the British troops charged into the White House. Remember, we learned that in the last story. Then we have the word toast, which isn't the toast that you eat for breakfast. It means to raise a glass and drink in honor of someone or something. We can also use it as toasted, such as the guest toasted the main speaker. Then we have the word ransacked. And hopefully some of you remember this word from when we did the listening and learning on the burning of Washington, D.C. But it's when you search in order to steal or cause damage. So oftentimes when people are searching for something, thieves especially, they'll ransack the whole place. They'll rip out the drawers. They'll turn over the couches, pull out the cushions because they're searching. They're ransacking the place. Number 4 is the word torch, which is a piece of wood that burns at one end. And some of you might remember that Sir Gus marched up to the cave to find the hungry troll with the torch. We have the word drape, or we talked about drapes before in the past, which are big, heavy curtains. So those are drapes. We have the word heavy blow, which is a difficult loss or hard to deal with. So when you're expected to win something and you end up losing it, we'll use the term, oh, that was a heavy blow, meaning like it's hard to understand. That was difficult to understand why you lost. And then we have the word soot, which is the black powder left behind when something burns. So today's whole group read is a continuation of kind of what we read yesterday, because we know that the troops marched to Washington, D.C., and there was an attack on it, and Dolly Madison took the important stuff to the American people and tried to rescue it. And now we're on to the burning of Washington, D.C. So please grab your readers and turn to page 54 so we can read chapter 6. I'm going to quickly grab this and scroll down to 54. Okay, here we go. Chapter 6, the burning of Washington, D.C. The British Army marched into Washington, D.C. The British soldiers were angry because the U.S. Army had burned York, the capital of Canada. They planned to get back at the Americans by burning the U.S. Capitol building. The British soldiers went to the Capitol building. This was where the U.S. Congress met. They set it on fire. Then they marched down the hill to the president's house. The British arrived just after Dolly Madison left. They broke down the doors and charged inside. It's a good thing she left just in time. And here is a painting that shows the Capitol building after it was set on fire by the British. And if you look closely at the windows, you can see the black powder, the soot left behind. The president's house was empty. In the dining room, the table had been set for dinner. The British general sat down with some of his men. They ate dinner. They drank some wine too. As a joke, they toasted President Madison. They lifted their wine glasses and thanked him for the wine. So you have to remember, these British troops were marching for days. They were hungry, they were tired, and here they got into the White House and they saw that Dolly Madison was probably ready to host a dinner party. There was food ready, the table was set, so they figured, hey, let's sit down, eat, and they jokingly toasted President Madison, thanking him for this wonderful meal and the wine, and then let's see what happens. After dinner, the British soldiers started smashing things. They smashed the dishes. They smashed the table. They smashed the chairs. The soldiers ran up and down in the president's house looking for things to steal. They took the spoons and forks. They took the buckles from Mrs. Madison's shoes. They even took the love letters her husband had sent her. The house was ransacked. So a lot of you are probably thinking, why would they take spoons and forks and buckles from shoes? Well, back then, all those things were made of real sterling silver, and silver was worth money, so they figured they'd take it. And the love letters that they took, obviously that wasn't worth any money. They just took that to really upset them. Then the British general ordered his men to set the house on fire. The soldiers lit their torches, then they went from room to room. They lit the drapes on fire. They burned the beds. They burned the desks and chairs. They even burned Mrs. Madison's dresses. That's so sad. She's probably very upset over that. And here is another drawing of the British burn the president's house. Then the British marched away. They did not care to take over the city. They just planned to burn it. Burning the city would be a heavy blow. The British hoped the Americans might feel like there was no longer hope and stop fighting. Later that day, a storm rolled in. The rain stopped most of the fires, but it was too late. Many of the buildings were already lost. Later in the week, the Madisons came home. The president's house was still standing, but it was a mess. The walls were black with soot. The windows were broken. All of their things had been stolen or burned. They felt they would never call the president's house home again. So they were pretty upset by this, as anyone would be, to come back and see what had taken place. And here we have another image that shows how the president's house looked after it was burned. So you can see all the soot and how the windows were blown out, and it was just basically destroyed. So after that, after we do another read on this, we will read Chapter 7, The Attack on Baltimore, next. But I hope this is all refreshing your memory and that you remember some of this stuff because we have learned it before, so it should be familiar to you. Okay, so now I'm going to go over most of the worksheets with you. One of them I'm going to do in a different video because it's a little complicated. But this first one right here, parts of speech, so you should look back at the reading that we just did and search for common noun, which is any old person, place, or thing. It doesn't have a name. Proper noun, names. Proper noun, naming a person, common noun, any old noun. Common noun, naming a place, common noun, naming a thing. Okay, so this could be spoons. Adjective, word that describes. So adjective and a noun. Words, obviously, a word that would describe a noun. A verb, something you do, like burned. A to be verb, those small ones, okay? Am, was, were. Adverb and a verb, quickly ran, something like that. Okay, so that's that. And then on the back of the worksheet, it says use some of the words from the list on the front of the worksheet to make up your own sentences about the War of 1812 or the burning of Washington, D.C. So just take some of the words that you put here and build some sentences on the back describing either the War of 1812 in general or the burning of Washington, D.C. Then 17.2, you're going to say the two words. You have to say them to hear the sounds. Can't just look at them, you have to say them. And you're going to write same if the underlined letters stand for the same sound, and write different if they stand for different sounds. So like number 1, stampede. So these E's, the magic E makes it say E. Reveal. Okay. Number 2, increase. Instead. Well, that's easy. Even though they're spelled the same. EA. This says E. This says eh. So that would definitely be different. Character. CH says K there. Church. CH says Ch here. Different. Okay? So go ahead, do that for that one. 17.3, this is the one you're going to submit. It's a review of verbs and adverbs. So it's read each sentence, put a wiggly line under the verb, a triangle around the adverb, and draw an arrow from the adverb to the verb. Okay, so Mark runs quickly. Runs is the verb, squiggly line it. Triangle quickly, because that describes how he runs. Draw an arrow to runs. Trish sang sweetly. Sang is our verb. Sweetly is how she sang it. So triangle that, and draw an arrow to sang, because it describes it. Then 17.4 is a reread, The Burning of Washington, D.C. Read this to a parent or a friend or a brother tonight. And this is the worksheet that I'm going to do a different video for you later because I need to write it down for you to show you how to build these sentences. So I will do a different video for that. So right now, just do the whole group read with me and then worksheet 17.3 and submit it. Thanks, guys.